Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Now on March 23rd, 2020, unfortunately the UK, like most of the rest of the world, was placed into a national lockdown. Therefore, with no work or nowhere to go and not being able to leave home, I had to come up with a job that I'd be able to do to keep myself busy during lockdown. Therefore, in this video I'm going to show you how I made my DIY Nimbus 2000. I was fortunate to have the power tools already, but this cost me under £20, so you can do this on the cheap at home. The first step is that you need to find a long enough wooden branch. Now we found this in our local wooded area and it was already down on the ground. If you need to let it dry out, do so, and then you start step number 2, which is to debark it and try and get as much of the trimmings off as possible. Ideally all the bark does need to be removed. Now this does make a little bit of a mess, so just make sure you tidy as you go. Step 3 probably was as physically tough as it's going to get, and it's to sand down your branch that you've got. We found it easier to put up in this uphold position, and then we just sanded it down to it as smooth as possible. There obviously will be lumps naturally from the branch, but you want it as smooth, and here is my completed smooth test. For the next step, I did head back out to the woodland area where I collected the original branch, and I got loads of thin branches that were already on the floor. So this might be a seasonal job for you to go and collect, and the weather was simply beautiful at the UK. It was our summertime, so I was able to make a couple of trips to go and get the sticks that I needed. Next step does require a power tool, so just be careful, but you need to carve the head and make it as flat as possible. You need to make it as flat as possible so you can engrave the Nimbus 2000 sign at the end, so just make sure you take your time and get it as flat as possible. Next up was a little bit of a fiddly job, and at the end of the broomstick handle we actually glued a water bottle, so a plastic drinking bottle, and then attached the thin sticks around this. You can see inside we actually wrapped it in newspaper just to give it some substance, and then attached the thin branches using elastic bands and cable ties. At this point we did paint the branches before we continued, so we painted them when they were attached at the top and then painted down the wooden handle and the branches. The plan then is to attach the thin branches once they're painted so we can see the gaps. I did add a number of layers, so about 3 or 4 layers, and this was the most expensive part of the broomstick, was picking up the paint. I believe it was from Wix for about £8 to £9, so it was quite reasonable, and a really large tub. But yeah, add a few layers just so you get a really vibrant colour. Just make sure you also let the branch fully dry before you do try and move it, and just make sure that the paper doesn't stick to it. I accidentally let some of the newspaper dry onto it and had to rip it off. But then you move on to painting the gaps, so I got a thinner paintbrush and filled in all the areas that I'd missed. We'd actually combined now the thin branches and attached them with a cable tie. Finally, we have the last step to print and create a stencil, so I just printed one off Google, and obviously it says Nimbus 2000. I traced around it, cut it out, and then we sprayed it onto the handle. We sprayed it using a simple gold spray from my DIY store, and that just cost £2, so it was really easy to pick up. This then leads us to the final step, which is just to add some gold trim accessory. So I took another plastic water bottle, cut it into 3 different strips, sprayed them gold at the same time, and then added them onto the table just to provide the finishing touches. Once all the gold paint had then dried, it was then time for the final broomstick reveal because everything was finished. So it cost us under or around £18 in total, and here she is. It is life size, it is actually really big in person, and I love it. The finished broomstick is actually really strong and really sturdy, and it's actually really vibrant in real life. I'm just trying to find a realistically good place for it to be displayed in my house. In total, I think it has taken us about 3.5 days to finally complete and let everything dry, so it's really worth it if you do have the time to try it. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you do attempt to make your own broomstick, please feel free to share and send me some of your photos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll hopefully see you soon for more Harry Potter content.